Welcome and thank you for joining the Siskiyou County Arts Council for our presentation, Understanding the California Creative Corps Program, How to Develop an Effective Project and Grant Application. This informational broadcast is presented by the Siskiyou County Arts Council, the official in-county partner for the Upstate California Creative Corps Program. This presentation was developed to assist artists, culture bearers, creatives, and social service and government agencies who are interested in developing a project and applying for funding through the Upstate Region's grant program. At the conclusion of this presentation, you will have experience with planning tools that will prepare you to develop an effective project and draft a clear application. We are not going through this application question by question to develop answers. However, we will go through the process that will help us determine a project concept and outline an implementation plan. The information you develop will be used in your application, but it is not the application in of itself. This is an abbreviated process, and this presentation will move quickly. Do not feel like you have to develop your project at the pace we are moving through our slides. You can return to each portion of this presentation as you need and spend as little or as much time in each section, moving on to the next once you feel comfortable with your plan. Our goal in providing you with this information is to get more projects funded and increase project efficacy so we can make a case to renew funding for this valuable program. The California Creative Corps Project is a newly launched workforce development grant program which places artists in service to communities across the state, including the 19 counties in Northern California that make up the Upstate region. This is not a typical arts project grant and may not fit projects already under significant planning and development. Awardees will develop outreach and engagement campaigns designed to increase awareness around environmental issues such as water and energy conservation, climate mitigation, and emergency preparedness, relief, and recovery, as well as civic engagement, social justice, and public health. The California Arts Council has selected 14 organizations to administer the Creative Corps program across 9 regions. For the Upstate California region, the Nevada County Arts Council, working with county arts councils and arts organizations, will administer over $3.3 million in workforce development funds between spring 2023 and spring 2024. This project funds artists and organizations who will employ them, with particular emphasis on government and social service organizations creating permanent jobs from this pilot program. Program goals include placing artists in service using their creativity to address the standard of living for Californians at the lowest relative levels in the state. Artists were selected for this program because they are vital members of any vibrant community, deeply embedded in the places where they live and work, and still economically recovering from pandemic-related shutdowns. This grant is for projects in communities with HPI scores in the lowest 2 quarters in the Upstate region, known as Q1 and Q2 areas. Applications to the Upstate region's program are due April 28th, no later than 11:59 p.m. Before we proceed, it should be noted much of the information in this presentation was adapted from the Community Organizing Institute for Leadership of Shasta County Health and Human Services Agency. At its core, this grant is about community organizing. So what is that? Community organizing is about people coming together to create tangible improvements in people's lives through a democratic and empowering process. Community organizing is not merely a process that is good for its own sake. Unless the organization or organizer wins concrete, measurable benefits for those who participate, it will not last long. Community organizing is about long-term change through policy, systems, or in the environment of a place or location. Often misunderstood as a left or progressive process, community organizing is a way for any community to come together and create the change they want to see. Artists are important community organizers because of their capacity to visualize new and creative ways to address problems, their connection to the community, and their ability to communicate and inspire. Understanding the history and theory surrounding community organizing is a master class in and of itself. While we cannot cover the depth or breadth of knowledge surrounding community organizing, we think it is important to share a community organizing ethical framework to help guide this work and build upon. First, do no harm. Do not usurp the community's power. Never do for the people what they can do for themselves. That's the ironclad rule for community organizing. Don't make the community dependent. Don't define people by their needs. Don't fragment the community. Don't distract the community from its own priorities. Don't take people's time without showing results. And don't treat nonprofit organizations as the surrogate for community. Additionally, do some good. Get out of your house or office and into the community. Listen and learn from the community. Help the community to discover its resources and power. Help the community to identify common interests and root causes. Share tools that enable the community to take the lead and share their gifts with one another. Assist organizations and agencies to network with each other. Pay attention to segments of the community that are being excluded and find ways to engage them. Develop new leaders. Raise objections when you encounter discrimination. And practice what you preach by being active in your own community. To really understand this grant program, including its design and intended goals, we first need to understand what an HPI score is. An HPI, or Healthy Places Index, is an aggregate score for how healthy a community, location, or place is relative to other communities in California. An HPI score is an average of multiple scores in specific categories. Scores in individual categories are based on data collected from various sources, including census information. We are going over those categories in a minute, but first it is important to discuss why understanding an HPI score is relevant to project development. To create measurable improvement in the health of a place, specifically to have a measurable, positive impact on an HPI score, you must understand the data used to develop the score and address those criteria. Explicitly addressing the HPI criteria in your project is not required for this grant. However, if this type of work is new to you, we recommend framing your first project using the HPI scores and policy action areas provided by the state. As you gain experience in community organizing, you can always work on other issues and broaden your project strategies. Start on a project where you have enough support and resources to be successful. Research and data collection and review are critical to community organizing. Do not wing it or make assumptions. As important as your intuition and involvement within a community is, it is not a substitute for having data. The HPI map includes citations for where data used was gathered. If you are searching for more information on that data or for more data points, start by reviewing the same sources, such as the census, to see if other relevant data points for your project are available. The state has listed policy action areas which can provide a framework for potential projects. It is a good idea to refer to the policy action areas because they outline beliefs or policy statements that underpin the Healthy Places Index. When developing a project narrative for your application, these beliefs do not need to be significantly reiterated or reestablished. Rather, your application should make it clear how your project will have an impact in an area. For example, the state makes the following statement in their policy for low-income renters. Quote, all residents should be able to afford adequate housing without giving up healthy food, medical care, or other necessities, or accepting unsafe housing conditions, end quote. You do not need to remake the case if this is a good or true belief in your application since it's already been established as a core policy statement. But you should explain how your project will have an impact on making this a reality for people in a community. You do not need to reinvent the wheel, particularly if this type of work is new to you. This is a pilot program. Projects that have demonstrable impact will help make the case for renewed funding. Look at what has worked in other communities. We are now going to launch a brief overview of the HPI map. If you are interested in learning more about the map and how to use it, there are additional video resources listed on the Upstate California Creative Corps website. When you launch the HPI map, you should see the entire state of California in blue and green sections. For the purpose of this presentation, we are going to focus on Siskiyou County. However, the Upstate Creative Corps program is open to projects in any area in the Upstate region. For more information, see the grant application guidelines. You'll see that as a whole, Siskiyou County's HPI score is 33.9, and the county as a whole is shaded light blue, indicating that at the county level, Siskiyou is a Q2 community, meaning we are the second lowest quarter of communities in California. Scrolling down, you will also see the individual categories that go into an overall HPI score, such as economic and environmental factors. You will also see the most current racial demographics for Siskiyou, a score for racial equity, and information about past practices that have impacted racial demographics. We can also break down the county into smaller types of communities based on things like zip codes or census tracts. Viewed like this, we can see some communities stay shaded light blue, while others are now darker blue color. You can view the same categories and corresponding ranks that make up an HPI score as we saw before, but for smaller or more specific areas. Let's take a deeper dive into one particular community to see more information. The community of Doris, California in eastern Siskiyou County has an HPI score of 21.2 and is shaded dark blue to indicate it is a Q1 community, or the lowest quarter of communities in the state. Again, you will see the same categories as we saw in the previous two examples, but let's select one of the categories to see even more information. Let's look at housing in Doris. You can see specific categories under housing. Some have higher score in green, others have lower scores in shades of blue. If we wanted to learn more about these scores, we can go further into detail. Looking at the economy of Doris, we see it is shaded dark blue. Within the economy section, there are even more specific criteria. Let's look at the per capita income criterion. We can see the individual scores for per capita income for Doris, as well as information about how this category is defined, how it is connected to health, as well as data sources and citations. Remember, it is important to review this information because you do not need to use the limited space in your grant narrative reiterating or making a case for a statement or belief that is already established. As mentioned earlier, if you are struggling to find a way to have a positive impact on an issue, a good place to start is by reading the policy action areas in each criterion section. The state has given you ideas for ways to create change. These are not the only ways to create change. They are not perfect, nor are they a fix-all. But these are some of the things that you may consider building a project around. As with most of the HPI map, clicking into a section will take you to increasingly specific information. You definitely do want to go down the rabbit hole when exploring this map. It is important to note that the policy action areas and subsequent recommendations for action steps are generalized information. A community may not have an issue with, for example, wage theft, or may not need more worker cooperatives. One of the most important steps you should take is good data review to ensure you're addressing an actual issue rather than a perception or an assumption. A tenet of community organizing is data collection, both qualitative and quantitative. Remember, do not assume, do not wing it, and make every effort to ensure you are not imposing your perspective on something in contradiction to the community's perspective. If you assume something is true, you may waste time and burn out your community shadowboxing an issue that does not exist. In order to tackle the first part of project development, try posing an issue as a question. For example, why is the per capita income of Doris so low? Talk to the community, conduct formal and informal surveys, call local community organizations, public health offices, libraries, etc. Gather as much data as you can. While your intuition and experience with an issue is important, do not let it be the only thing that informs your project. Make specific time to listen without convincing others of your perspective. Lastly, do not be afraid to Google it. Locate additional research that others have done on an issue. Find examples of successful strategies from other communities. Consult professionals working on similar topics. After this, you will take all the information you've gathered and conduct a root cause analysis. A root cause analysis is a process used to investigate and categorize the root cause of community needs. The root cause is the deepest level cause of a problem, or the factor that should be permanently eliminated, reduced, or addressed to see improvement. There are a lot of additional resources on conducting a thorough root cause analysis. Here, we will go over the basic overview, but feel free to go through a more involved process and consult additional resources. To conduct root cause analysis, you should define the event or issue, such as below average wages. Find causes using data, both qualitative and quantitative, such as too few jobs driving wages down. Work out the root cause. There may be more than one root cause to an issue, but make sure you are diving as deep into the action that causes a problem as you can. One root cause issue that leads to a lack of jobs may be that owners do not recirculate or reinvest profits from a business into the business or the community. This may be caused at its root by a concept such as greed, but for your project, focus on specific actions that people do or don't do, not concepts, as the problem you want to attack. Find solutions that can mitigate the root cause, such as developing worker co-ops. Remember, this was an idea from the policy action area in the HPI map. This, too, is a place where you want to confirm that an action has demonstrable impact on an issue using data from research conducted by other sources. Take action. Develop a plan to vision and initiate a solution like develop a co-op incubator, and launch a tactic such as a media campaign to inform the public about what a co-op is and what benefits it may have on job creation. Lastly, like any good project, you will want to find ways to verify your solution's effectiveness. For example, can you develop pre- and post-project surveys that assess change in certain data points that you will believe will be impacted? Quantify and qualify success. Set a goal for how much change you will consider to be evidence of success. Does a 10% change over the project timeline feel like success? Remember to be realistic. Systemic issues are not solved with one project, but we can measure impact and invest time and resources in solutions that work. We'll discuss more of this later in the presentation. If you are not sure where to find information on what solutions have demonstrable impact, remember the HPI map includes links to data as well as citations to studies that confirm policy statements. Here we can see the links to articles that include information on how co-ops have positive impacts on economic development. Again, you do not have to reinvent the wheel to be successful. It is good to follow models that have proven success rates. You can still be creative, adapt frameworks, and inspire your community employing tools from other sources. After you define an action plan to attack the root cause of an issue, it is helpful to spend some time strategizing. Assess the environment in which you will be working. The support of your community members is important, but there may be specific people in the community who, due to a position they hold or a relationship they have, will be particularly important to integrate into a plan. Identifying a person with significant influence or the positional authority to make something a reality is an important part of tuning a plan into an actionable strategy. Power mapping can help you determine who those people or groups are, but also who can help you connect to them. Once you've assessed who you'll be working with, develop tactics, individual steps to achieve your strategic goal based on realistic assessment of what power you can leverage. Select tactics that can get you wins. Creating demonstrable and real improvements in people's lives is a core aspect of community organizing. Your tactics should be clear and specific, and you may layer multiple tactics to achieve your overall strategy, but do not try to fit everything into one tactic. A SMART goal is a tool you can use to help you structure and benchmark individual tactics. SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, or sometimes called relevant, and timely. Use these prompts to assess and define the steps you will take to achieve your strategy and define your explicit goals toward that end. There are numerous resources available that take deeper dives into SMART goals, including examples of a clear SMART goal. If you map out your SMART goal tactic and realize what you plan to do will not have an impact on your larger strategy, then it is not a relevant tactic to use to achieve your articulated strategy. Although it may be important or good, it is not the right fit for what you're currently working on. Once you flesh out a strategy and a tactic, you can draft a clear budget to get there. The California Creative Corps grant requirements state that 80% of the requested funds must be used to pay the artist directly, and 20% can be used for administrative or other program expenses. With your time paid for, what can you accomplish? Combining forces with established organizations may reduce your supply expenditure cost while increasing the likelihood of extending the position. Are there nonprofit organizations, tribal or local governments, or foundations that would be good partners on your project? Scaffolding a project with other partners, no matter the type of relationship, can increase the impact of the project as well as the chances of a longer-term position and program. The Creative Core program is a pilot workforce development program. It is about creating sustainable jobs for artists across the state. The more quantifiable success we generate with this pilot, including creating new permanent positions, for example, in local government, the more likely we are to secure continued funding. Permanent job creation is a specific goal and review criteria for the administrating organizations. As we previously discussed, part of a root cause analysis is verifying your theory is correct and the solution you tested was successful. The quantifiable and qualifiable goals that you outline in your SMART goals can be your list of specific outcomes in a grant application. Defining what you want to measure will inform what data you need to collect throughout the project. Having this as part of your plan before you actually start your funded project will make data collection significantly easier. If the information in this presentation feels overwhelming, pace yourself. Your project is one campaign and an ongoing process of continuous improvement. You should not aim to solve a problem outright, but aim to develop a job, organization, or group that can continually attack an issue or issues with new strategies and campaigns over and over. The last part of developing your project is articulating how it fits into the California Creative Core key program goals. Now that the bulk of your project has been outlined, crafting a clear, compelling, and concise statement should feel easier. What is your project? Why does it fit within one or more of the 4 key program goals? And how will your work deliver improvement? If you still find answering this question difficult or unclear, revisit the steps outlined in this presentation and see if you can rewrite your project outline in shorter, more declarative sentences in order to focus on your project. Do not worry about writing style or eloquence at this stage. Clarity in your project design will lend itself to more compelling and elaborate narratives. If you pitch your idea to friends or colleagues and they cannot seem to understand your idea, it is a sign that your concept is not clearly defined or articulated. Keep revising it until you can succinctly and clearly describe it in what it will do in 30 seconds or less, or what is known as an elevator pitch. You need to demonstrate to reviewers reading multiple applications why your project will be successful and should be funded. There are more resources, including grant writing workshops, on the Upstate Region's Creative Core website. Thank you for joining us for this presentation. We hope that you are able to take this information and tools presented and develop a fundable grant application. The Siskiyou County Arts Council is offering office hours through April 23rd to help review project ideas or design, read through draft grant applications, and make recommendations for aligned community partners to work with. Email contact@siskiyouarts.org to set up an appointment for weekdays after 6 p.m. or weekends. For more information on the California Creative Core program, including additional resources and application information, visit upstatecreativecore.org. This presentation was made possible by the California Arts Council, Siskiyou Media Council, and Upstate California Creative Core program of the Nevada Arts Council.